Good afternoon, everybody. It's almost 4:15, which means it's almost scouting time in the booth. Radio scouting with Mr. Jim Wilson, K5ND, with the help me out here, Jim. I'm
Radio
just
scouting. Radio scouting, Jamboree on the air, whatever.
JOTA. All righty, and also the Icom loan kit. So I'm gonna turn it over to Jim Wilson. Everybody out there.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Ray. Thank you very much. And I'm going to go over a little bit of what Icom has been able to do for Boy Scouting and for amateur, of course, amateur radio. It's legendary. But what I'm going to be talking about is essentially. Yes, sir. Am I?
I can tell you're a CW op.
Yeah, I am a CW op.
There you go.
CW and RIDI, so I need some macros to take care of this for me, and I can click on the call signs and move forward. But basically, I'm going to be talking about radio scouting and what it means to you as an amateur radio operator. But as Ray noted, I'm Jim, K5ND. I spent a career working at Boy Scouts of America in their publishing and communication operation, but my night job and my volunteer job has been working on Jamboree on the air as the national. I was. You'll probably like this story. Boy Scouts of America needed a national Jamboree on the air organizer, and they looked around the national office, about 500 people, and there was one guy with a ham radio license. That was me, so that's how I got that job. So remember this: your ham radio license will pay off for you at one day. Also, at that time, formed the U.S. Scouting Radio Scouting Committee, and I'm presently the president of K2BSA Amateur Radio Association, the association that's most closely connected to the national organization of Boy Scouts. And in fact, Walt Maxwell, I think it's W2DU, founded K2BSA and was one of the guys, or was the guy that got that call sign back in the day in the early 70s when they didn't have vanity call signs. There's a fantastic history of K2BSA, and it's on the K2BSA.net website. So here's what I'm going to go over in this presentation, but really what's Jamboree on the air, the radio merit badge, the amateur radio operator rating strip, Morse code interpreter strip, and the Jamboree operation. So we've actually in the past 2 years we've set up a progression for amateur radio and extending its reach within the scouting movement. Now I'm not going to claim that we plan to do this, but it worked out this way, pushing on one thing and pulling on another. We're able to pull together this path. It's essentially Jamboree on the air as an introduction, then there's rank advancement with the radio merit badge, and then special recognition, and I'll be going into each one of these separately. Jamboree on the air, make sure I read my notes here. This year will mark the 57th anniversary of Jamboree on the air. It's a world scouting event operated by the World Scout Bureau, currently in Geneva, Switzerland. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But when I started digging into this, I didn't realize that it was the largest scouting event in the world. That third weekend of October, it's estimated about 700 scouts or 700,000 scouts get on the air. There's simultaneously with this is Jamboree on the internet, and that is in about its 18th year of operation. There's about 300,000 scouts that get on that particular medium. So it's roughly 1,000,000 scouts that are engaged in conversation. They estimate 29,000 amateur radio operators, 12,000 stations on the air, and 150 countries. There's only 162 countries that are involved in scouting. So it's a pretty big event. And again, I'm a CW guy, I guess. But so what are the benefits? The real purpose of Jamboree on the Air, and you can imagine this is because it's a world scouting event, its total focus is on engaging people in other countries and other cultures, and those other cultures might be in the neighboring state or the county, but it's reaching out and talking to other scouts and finding out what's going on with them. Within the U.S. The operation within the national office that's responsible for this is called the International Department, because that's what it is. It's an international event. But we also know as amateur radio operators that it's our opportunity to introduce scouts to the fun and the magic that is amateur radio. So it's really an introductory point. And so these are some photographs from the 2013 Jamboree. This guy is at W6TOI in California. This guy is at KH6BB. He's actually in Pearl Harbor on the battleship Missouri. They fired up that station, got it on the air, and handed out a lot of QSOs. In fact, one of the fun stories from them is I'm pretty sure these are the guys I was talking to, or reading their report. They were talking to some scouts in Alberta, Canada. It's October. They're at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, and the guys in Alberta are telling them about the snow that is falling there, and they can't even contemplate what snow is. So that, to me, is a very nice example of engaging with other scouts, learning about other cultures and communities. So as a numbers guy, these are the numbers so far. In 2010, when I first got, when they were looking around trying to find an amateur radio operator to work with this, we had 31 stations that reported their results for Jamboree on the Air. Now, I'm not saying that that's how many were on. I think it was far more than that. They just weren't reporting. In 2011, it was 68 stations that actually gave us a report. I think there was about 100 stations that registered prior to the event. 2012, we hit 204, 271, and you can see the growth in the number of scouts that were reported. I'll tell you that 2013, there were just over 400 stations that registered before the event. And then I do a little pestering campaign. Tell us about your event. Tell us how many scouts were there, etc. And we got 271 to report. So I think it was a little bit higher involvement than that. So one of the magic questions is, how do you organize a Jamboree on the Air event? Well, we've got two cultures, if you will, trying to bring them together. One is a scouting culture. The other one is the amateur radio. How do we get them connected so that they're working to the benefit of the scouts and the benefit of amateur radio? So you have to reach out to that local council, the local district, or the local troop or pack, and I'll tell you, they won't know what you're talking about. It's their event. It's Jamboree on the Air, but honestly, may not have heard of it. So you've got a challenge there. What we've what we've put together is it's called Jamboree on the Air Talking Points, and it's organized by troop or pack, by district, and by council. Council is the larger unit within scouting, and it says here's what's important to them, and here's how to talk to them. So it's a bit of a translation tool, if you will. The also, a best practice that I'll recommend for you is to line up your Jamboree on the Air event with an existing Scout event. Ideally, there's a camporee or some kind of event that's happening that weekend that you can go in and be one more activity within that weekend. And I tell you that because I get phone calls, I get emails from very disappointed amateur radio operators who set up an operation. They invite the scouts, and no one shows up. And the problem with that is that everybody's weekend is really, really busy, and so they've got to carve out the time. They've got to find the club, ham shack or whatever, and sometimes they don't make it there. So one thing to do in that situation is get on the air and talk to the other scouts that are on the air and hand out some QSOs. That's another challenge in the event is you getting those two-way conversations going. So that's one thing to do, but another thing is be where the scouts are and be one more activity so that they're if they see it, they're exposed to it, great, fine and dandy. There'll be some that it lights their hair on fire and they can't get enough of it, and they'll be coming back for more, and that's where the magic starts. Also, I think that's later. There's a there's quite a few resources available online to help you in that effort, to help you in your JOTA or operation. The go-to website is scouting.org/JOTA. And then there's K2BSA.net is the other go-to resource. A lot of the stuff that it's since I'm the webmaster for K2BSA.net, it's real easy for me to get stuff up there. I have no approval process whatsoever. Now on the scouting.org site, I got an approval process, and then I have to wait for our time for the resources. But we've got leader guidelines, operator guidelines, planning and calendar, program ideas, success stories. There's participation certificates you can print out and hand out during your event. And there's quite a few videos up there as well, particularly on K2BSA that you can. Actually, this presentation will be on video and be posted as soon as it's available on YouTube. And last year's is up there as well. So there's a lot of resources. There's one of my favorite videos is in 2011. We had a scheduled contact with the International Space Station from the National Scouting Museum. And so we got great audio and video. It's actually still images, great photographs and audio of that contact. And it's a nice little, I think it's about a 3-minute video. So it's short enough, it doesn't lose them, and it's action packed. So you might recognize this guy here. This is Ray Novak at the National Scout Jamboree. You like that? Yeah. Yeah, his lawyer's going to get in touch with my lawyer. But this is what the station looked like at the National Scout Jamboree, and Ray helped us get set up there, and that's Icom gear that's running. And my caption for this photograph is, "Who's having the most fun? Is it the Scout or is it Ray?" I'll tell you, it was Ray. All through that time, he was there helping us get set up. But back to this path again. We talked about Jamboree on the Air, and it's really a broad-based introduction. one of the numbers up there was like 18,000 scouts got through it a year or two ago. Well, not all of those are going to go on to Radio Merit Badge, but there are some that will, and this is that path that we put together. So, what's Radio Merit Badge? Actually, you'll love this. It's one of the very first merit badges in the scouting merit badge world. 1918. This patch was produced working with ARRL. At the time, it was called the wireless merit badge, and I think about 22, right in the early 20s, it became radio merit badge. And this is what it looked like in 1918. It looked exactly like this, with the BSA white dashes and the lightning bolts. But it's an introduction to radio. There are actually 3 different options to complete the badge. One is amateur radio, one is shortwave listening, and one is broadcast radio. And I'll tell you, the requirements for shortwave listening take you about 3 to 6 months, I believe. The requirements for broadcast take a similar time frame. The requirements for the radio merit badge, it's typically a day-long workshop. At the Jamboree, we did it in 4 hours. So you can imagine which one the scouts select to do. For those of you that are involved with scouting, and those who are not, I've been told there are 2 types of merit badges in the eyes of a scout: Eagle required and easy. Okay, those are the only 2 types that they can see, and this is one of those. So it's a good path for them. And this is I've talked with a few people here this week, and there's maybe a more detailed chart on the website. But I had looked back in the archives. We're able to go back. Actually, I think 1949 is the first year-by-year numbers we have. Boy Scouts has on the number of merit badges earned in a year. And I expected it to just kind of do one of these gradual slides, but instead it's been doing this real climb. And going back to that easy is one of the reasons for that. Back in the early 50s, the 40s, etc., to be a first-class scout, you had to learn Morse code, and I think it was about 5 words per minute, 3 words per minute, and then they dropped that in the first-class badge, but they did not drop it for the radio merit badge. Yeah, so where it was 5 at the radio merit badge, it actually started out at 10 and 12 in the early days, but so radio merit badge started dropping in the 80s because it was the only thing that had a Morse code requirement. They dropped the code requirement in the early 90s, and it started skyrocketing as the word started getting out. Last year, we set a new record for number of merit badges earned at I think it was 7,213. 2009, it was 7,209. So it bumped it up just a little bit, but it's been in that 6,000 to 7,000 a year range for quite some time now, and so it's great to see. This is the opportunity for amateur radio. Kids are earning the radio merit badge, and they're earning it by learning about amateur radio. So what's the next thing on the path? We've got this special recognition bar down here, and this is called the Amateur Radio Operator Rating Strip. This is that next step to get scouts engaged with amateur radio. So for about, they invested a day or so earning that radio merit badge. For a similar investment of time, they can get that technician license. And the Amateur Radio Operator Rating Strip looks just like this. It's another patch. Another magic phrase around scouting is nothing happens without a patch. And so you pass that technician license, you sew the patch on. That's the only requirement. And it's good for Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, venturers, youth, and adults. It all works. And this is this has been one of the surprising things for me. It's only been available for a year. Last 12 months sales 6,800. So it's now, of course, some of that is guys like me buying some and sewing them on all my uniforms, and guys like Gary buying some and handing them out. But so that's some of it. That early, but that's great. We're really delighted with that. And the other special recognition item is the Morse code interpreter strip. So you thought Morse code had gone away. Well, maybe everywhere but Boy Scouts. Okay, we got it. And to tell you the story, the backstory, the National Radio Scouting Committee began pushing around with the national. I think it's the Awards and Insignia Committee right now. Started knocking on the door saying we think that interpreter strip could say ham radio operator on it. We think it could do this, that. We wanted some kind of uniform recognition. And this, I love what happened with this. We filed many different proposals to them. Finally, they came back with a note to us and said, well, we were looking at it. We know the interpreter strip, which is all about languages, Spanish, German, etc. We looked at your proposal. It wasn't talking about language. Then we said, wait a minute, what about Morse code? We went back and looked, and it wasn't talking about Morse code. So, no, we can't do this. And so 30 minutes later, after we got that message, there was a proposal for a Morse code interpreter strip. And about an hour later, we had approval on it. And they told me later, as I talked to them, they said, I guess we telegraphed our intentions to you. But so I should have told you a little bit more about interpreter strips. It is Espanol, or it's German, and it says Espanol, or it says Deutsch on it. And its purpose is, if you've got a competency with that language and you're at, say, an event like this, you've got your uniform on, you've got that patch, somebody can come up to you and say in German, what's going on here, and help me out. And you're supposed to be able to do that. So this is the Morse code interpreter strip. It spells out Morse in dots and dashes. And it is, and I mentioned here, we've sold 1,200 in the past year. I think the previous year it was about 1,200 as well. If I remember this correctly, the Espanol interpreter strip is the highest selling strip, and it's selling at about 1,500 a year. So we're, a little bit more, and we could be the #1 interpreter strip. And for those of you that are really involved in scouting, there's on the K2BSA website, there's information about how to administer that program. It's the interpreter strip program is administered at the unit level, and so it's somebody at the unit that's designated to validate your skill set. So it's I found that the big questions that were coming back as we introduced this was people were looking for rules, something that's characteristic of Boy Scouts, and there are guidelines mostly around this particular one. So we provided them. Okay, another fun activity within radio scouting is the National Scout Jamboree, and this is where 40,000 scouts come together and for 10 days have an extraordinary experience. And that's particularly true now at the summit in West Virginia. Boy Scouts bought their own property. It's a monster high adventure facility, zip lines, skateboarding parks that are designed by world-class skateboarding folks, shooting sports facility that's unbelievable, and archery. They have discs that they shoot across the sky, and you shoot them with arrows. It's all the stuff that they're doing there is like at a world-class level. In fact, their whole goal, one of their visions for that facility, is to host the X Games. So you can you can just imagine how extreme they've designed everything, and it's really a great facility. So it's operating year round for high adventure. Every 4 years, it's set up for this Jamboree. The this is the patch from the K2BSA operation, and we had a demonstration in place. Icom America provided 70 the IC 7200s for most of our stations. We also had the IC 9100s and a 7600 in place. I'll touch on all the sponsors here in a little bit. 2,600 scouts went through the demonstration station, so they got an exposure to amateur radio. Almost 340 scouts earned the radio merit badge. That was that 4-hour program. We had fox hunting there as well, with amateur radio direction finding with hidden transmitters. Got about 100 scouts through that. We had a scheduled contact with the International Space Station, and I think that has happened at all the previous Jamborees going back 5 or 6 times now. So that was an interesting process too. The scouts that were selected to communicate with the International Space Station were drawn from those who had completed the radio merit badge there on site. We had some high altitude balloon launches, and then trying to remember if I have a slide here that goes into Icom's support. Yeah, yes, I do. But Icom installed 3 repeaters at the facility, not just for the Jamboree, but they're on a permanent basis there to serve the high adventure base and to support the local community. So they have a 2-meter repeater, a 70-centimeter repeater, both FM, and then a 70-centimeter D-Star repeater. Did just and I'll touch on that a little bit more. But our sponsors, Icom provided the transceivers, the repeaters, on-site support, so much more. We had an issue with our. We actually worked with a kit manufacturer to build our amateur radio direction finding equipment, and that fell through. Icom stepped up, shipped us a whole bunch of R6 receivers, and those are what we used for that. Just did excellent work. Step IR provided vertical antennas, the big IRs and the little IRs, as well as a 2-element beam. Array Solution gave us our bandpass filters. Gigaparts got us headphones and microphones. But wonderful people that stepped up to help that operation at the Jamboree. And I'll give you just a quick a quick update on the at the world level of Jamboree on the Air, Jamboree on the Internet. I've had the good fortune to be appointed to the World JOTA team. There's 6 of us on that team. A guy from the Netherlands, one from Brazil, one from Oman, one from Finland, one from the UK. I think I got them all, and then me from the US. We met in Switzerland at the World Organization headquarters in March to kick off this year's efforts. It has a whole new focus from the world level. They've started to recognize, this is the largest scouting event in the world. Maybe we need to give it a bit more support. They've moved it from one part of their organization to the event part of their organization that has the right focus on making things happen. So what we're working on at the moment is I'm also co-webmaster of that website, JOTA site that hasn't quite been launched yet. And there's a wonderful registration system. Those of you who have participated in Jamboree on the Air in the past, we had our own registration system here in the U.S. in addition to the the world system. We're putting this one in place. Brazil has had it in operation for 2 years. It's just spectacular. We're going to take it worldwide now. And another thing that's happening at the world level is they're moving their headquarters from Geneva to Kuala Lumpur to be where the majority of scouting members are at in Southeast Asia. So what does it all mean to you as an amateur radio operator? Icom sponsored this particular campaign in 2011, may have been 2012, is called Mentoring the Next Generation of Hams. And as part of that campaign, they ran some number of ads on ARRL website and elsewhere, produced banners and all sorts of things for their dealers to help promote the activity. But this is where the next generation of hams come from. It's also the even if they don't become ham radio operators, they're the ones that are going to be sitting on your housing committee authorizing your antenna, or they're going to be sitting on the city council saying we don't want any antennas in our community, or wait a minute, I know about amateur radio, I got my radio merit badge, or I attended Jamboree on the air, you guys do good things, we need to give you authorization for that 500-foot tower, or whatever it might be. And so just a word about what Icom America has been doing for radio scouting. We actually have an ongoing program, and this is I hope I'm not running over here, but another little story. Prior to the 2013 Jamboree, about 2 years prior, I called Ray Novak and I said, I know that you've been loaning equipment to the Jamboree for many, many, many years, and we really appreciate that. But this year, I want you to give us the equipment. And what we're going to do afterwards is we're going to take that equipment and we're going to move it to local councils. So it's an enduring investment in radio scouting from Icom. It's not just a one-time loan. It just lasts. And Ray came back to me. First he said, okay, go on. I'm still listening. Well, that was a good sign. Then he came back and he said, I don't want to wait. I want to start now. I don't want to wait till after the Jamboree. I don't want to wait till the Jamboree. I want to start right now. And so what we did is those Pelican cases over there on the corner of the booth have a complete amateur radio station in them, from antenna to the 7200 to the power supplies, microphones, speakers, you name it, it's in there. It's a complete station. Icom built 10 of those, and many of them are out right now with scout councils on loan to help them get their amateur radio operations moving. So we've got them particularly around Jamboree on the air. They're in use. They're in use at radio merit badge workshops. We have one. I talked to him here. This guy right here's got one at his place it's called a development loan, and he's had it for a year or almost a year. But using it as basically a seed for talking to people about, hey, we need an antenna, we need a tower, we need to take this to the next level. This is just a loaner, and raising money, raising equipment, doing what scouting does to make things happen. But it's essentially helping that effort along by being able to demonstrate it. So we've got some great success stories, and it started 3 years ago now. They've also been doing a really good job of promoting radio scouting around the year. Ham Nation has run a number of videos, promoted Jamboree on the air, and the ARRL website, they posted it on the website. We had a great full-page ad in QST prior to Jamboree, talking about the rigs that we were going to be using at the Jamboree. They were the official sponsor of transceivers and repeaters at the Jamboree. They installed those 3 repeaters, top-notch, full-blown commercial installations. Really, really nice. So let's see, where am I at? I'm almost at the Q&A. You'll be glad. These are the places where you can go for more information. And that's right, we've got some brochures here with those links in here. QR code, go right to you got it, we got it. So pick up a brochure. But the K2BSA website is where we have a lot of information. The Facebook page, there's an ongoing dialogue there. Announcements happen there. A Twitter feed, scouting.org, the official Boy Scouts website, has a JOTA section. And then you can reach me. That's my email address. The what else do we got? Oh, you can sign up. We do right now. We're doing. In years past, I'd been sending out emails to people who had registered for Jamboree on the Air, just to keep them up to date on what was happening around the event. And so I've continued to use that mailing list, and I'm now producing a monthly newsletter, email newsletter, that just promotes what's happening. So you can sign up for that on the K2BSA website. So I'm open for questions. What do you, have, are you involved in Jamboree on the Air? No? You're going to be? Good. How do you become a radio merit badge counselor? That's a good question. I've just become one. You know, how I did that was my church has a troop. I reached out to the troop, there's a chartering organization representative that I reached out to, but there's a membership application to fill out. There's a background check that happens around that. They're online. There's some youth protection training, so that you're trained in that aspect, and then they'll list you on their webs page or whatever their facility is as a ref. And what I was surprised with, what I was for the whole district, all the different merit badges. But what I was surprised with, I asked to sign up for electricity, electronics, and radio merit badge, and I said, if you've already got them, no problem. I'll stand down, and you know that I'm a resource. Well, they didn't have any of those. It's like, are you kidding me? Those are easy. Come on, you got to have them. So, gosh, maybe I'll get to help out a little bit there. But the other thing that I'll mention, there is a real need during the Jamboree on the Air weekend for people to talk to. So you're set up. You're in a tent. You're in a pavilion. You got a whole bunch of transmitters, and you got 200 Boy Scouts standing behind you wanting to get on the air, and you're calling CQ JOTA, and no one's coming back to you. So as a ham radio operator, that's what you can do. You can come back to them and say, "Hi, this is K5ND. Let's talk." And you can talk to the scouts, and you can tell them about your stories and any number of things, and it's very, very helpful. So that's a big thing you can do around Jamboree on the Air. Last year I tuned around. I got on the air for a few people that were sending me messages through Facebook. Hey, got to get thank you. Got to get on the air at this frequency. Here's where I'm at, and was able to do that. But I also tuned across, and there were people that just kind of stumbled across it, I imagine. And for several hours, they were on the air handing out contacts to this station and that station and the other one. I came across another one. This will blow your mind. They were talking, and I'm listening. It was a net control operator that some JOTA station just stumbled across this frequency and started talking to this guy. And they shut down the net. and we're talking to them. Try to do that any other time. It's incredible. So that's one thing you can do. Any other questions? Yes. What his comment was is that a number of homeschoolers are using the Merit Badge series as curriculum, and he mentioned that Radio Merit Badge is one of those popular ones. And it reminds me too. I know a number of people who have made it through high school using that series to help them write papers on particular topics. They're written at a 11-year-old reading level, and a very good snapshot of that particular technology or whatever the topic is. There's 133, I think, at the moment. And believe it or not, another bit of trivia. Um, it's roughly 200 scouts a year earn every single merit badge that's available. 133 of them. And reason I know that is our PR gal at the national office gets these calls from a newspaper. Hey, we got this local kid. He's earned every merit badge. Has that ever happened before? Well, yes. We try not to disappoint them in their joy because it's quite an achievement. It absolutely is. All right. Any other? Yeah. All right. Thank you guys very much. Thank you. Thanks.